And we are back, moving into our first conversation for this morning. We were all excited last week about the debate that was held on Friday. And today we get to have a recap with the girls who presented on the stage. We have with us, and I'll start on my right, this is the proposing team, those who advocated for a yes position. We have Vivian Ake, who is a part of the proposing team. We have Davren Enriquez, and we have Camryn Linares. And on the end, we have social studies teacher for SCA, Kalima Enriquez Hibberd. On the left, we have the opposing team. We have Anya Andrew, Krishna Guemez, and Zariah Hinds. Good morning and welcome. So, obviously, you guys aren't nervous about this conversation at all, right? No, not really. All right, so good morning. And first of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you. You did an exceptional job on Friday. And I was saying it during the week, and you pretty much proved it. You really showed us adults how this conversation can be done in a respectful way and based primarily on facts. So congratulations on that much, and to the school as well. Thank you. So I want to start off just finding out what your own reflections are. After the weekend has passed, you've heard everybody's reaction. How you feel since you've gotten over this hurdle?
So I think it's a good time to reflect on how in the future or now people make their decisions. I think everyone got a bigger view from both sides instead of having it one-sided. And I think that was very beneficial for everyone, especially for us, because the way we got our information was very hard and long. You have to backtrack a lot. Find reasons, find little loopholes and things like that. And it was very, very fun, yet took a lot of effort. And I think that putting all your effort really pays off in the end.
Yeah. Want to hear somebody from this side? Your own reflections, yeah?
Over this weekend, I was relaxed, and I actually thought about how people saw somewhere with no, somewhere with yes, and then they have some people who came with a strong yes and was like, yes, we're going to ICJ, and then at the ending of the day, they decided, you know, we're going to vote no. And the same thing happened for us. Someone came saying that she's a strong no, and she voted yes. And, you know, everyone has opposing views and different views. So at the ending of the day, we just try to, like, show them that, you know, there has faulty or like a benefit with the yes and the no with both sides.
And Mrs. Hibberd, from your perspective, you need the microphone. Oh, okay, you have one, yeah. Okay.
I'm fine. So, my reflection wasn't so much on the debate. I thought the debate was excellent. Yeah. I thought they both got their points across well. But it was on the voting. So, to share the statistics, what we saw was that 55% voted no and 45% said yes. But our voters' turnout was 55%. And my big question for today is why? And that's the first thing we're going to tackle about how we're going to do some research on that this week, finding out why.
So if we were to unpack those numbers a bit more, there were about 1,000 students there, right?
Well, 915 registered to vote.
Yeah, but 900 were registered to vote, and from the 900, only 55% of that participated in the vote.
Yes.
That is interesting. It feels so much like a regular election.
It
some
does.
people don't register, some people register and don't vote, some people change their mind last minute, and some people go in resolute with what they're going to be voting for. But let's go on.
You know, I don't know if anybody's had something else that when they were reflecting this weekend, eating their rice and beans, they thought that they wanted to say this morning about what their experience was. Anybody else? But while you think about that, my question was, I mean, a lot of the people I meet on the street, and honestly, I don't hear any persons your age speaking about it. I hear you guys talking about the basketball game, about the latest style, but I don't hear you guys talking about this. But a lot of people out there are confused. They get a lot of information. And at the end of the day, when they get that information, they don't know where to go. It's like the difference between buying Prada and buying Gucci. You know, that's the thing. I don't know. Do you think that factored into maybe some of the low voter turnout? Do you think that some people just, you know, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to go waste my time. Do you think confusion and the excess of information contributed to people not voting?
Yes, I believe so. Because what we presented, I think at the time would be a lot to take in, and there was a small break between the debate and the voting, and I think some people need more time to make up their mind.
Interesting, interesting. Now, one of the things I've been reflecting on since the debate itself, in your presentations, you had to solidify your points that you wanted to present, and you had to practice and make sure that you could deliver them so that you could convince the students that were there. Now, when we talk about this issue, there's so much information. I want to know how you decided on which points you wanted to bring forward that you and why you thought those would be the most convincing points in your argument. Now I'll start with you because you were the first presenter.
Okay, so my main points, I chose them on what I thought was very touching to me as an individual, and I also chose it on behalf, I also thought about how it would affect us as, you know, teenagers, and how it would affect us when we're growing up.
Yeah.
Because those things will have an impact on us. So I chose that because those, unfortunately, they're facts.
Yeah.
And they do hurt people in the future.
Yeah.
So I think it would give them a wake-up call. And I hope that's what my speech did to some.
One of them was the economic ramifications, right? Which one of the 3 points that you presented you really felt was convincing enough for yourself?
For myself, it would have to be the environment, because I realized that us as Belizeans, we depend on it. We're very, very dependent on our natural resources. And so it really touched me because I love how we identify as very, very natural. Like, we have a lot of rainforests and things that not other countries have. So that really got my attention and got my emotions. So I think that's what I really liked.
Anybody else? We're going to turn up the AC.
Over here.
So
No, that doesn't make that. It's Monday morning. We got to shake it off, but that's fine. I want to ask, was it you, Anya, who said, it's a phrase I saw quite a bit afterwards, Guatemala's imaginary obsession?
It was me, yes.
So tell me about the points that you chose to present.
So I chose the point that the question that we use for going to the referendum is flawed. I had the point that Guatemala is a country that we cannot trust, and I also had one last point that said that we should be independent. We shouldn't be focused on what another country has to say about us when all the other countries in the world support us in our independence and sovereignty.
And which one of those points resonated the most with you?
Well, the point that went the most with me is that we are already sovereign, and why should we depend on Guatemala's point of view to change the view of ourselves and to impact how we see ourselves when we have 200 other countries who support us in the United Nations and the different organizations we're a part of.
What about you guys? I know you had the challenge of the rebuttal. That was
Well, for me, what I resonated with the most was the fact that it wasn't a political issue, but more a national issue. And I think that's a factor that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. So I think,
especially right now.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. Next up,
Krishna. So what I had to reflect. My main point. I had two other main points following Anya's. The one that really hit me the most was we are a sovereign country, but we're not kind of acting like one towards this issue. We have a stable government. We have a
a good immigration system. We have stuff that makes us an independent country. So this whole issue, as my colleague said, it's a national issue, political issue. We should think of, yeah.
So based on the shyness that I'm seeing this morning, it seems that you spent quite a bit of time preparing for that presentation, huh?
We did.
Yeah?
We spent like 3 days out of class. The entire day we were working together as a team. The entire team came together, researching, writing. You know, sometimes, like, I think with Vivian's, we had to restructure her entire speech.
Wow. Yeah.
We spent a lot of time working.
You guys referred to the way you feel, and the way something made you feel in terms of, and then you talked about what it made you feel. A lot of what you present, because you're at school, has to be fact. But some of the more attractive arguments are the emotional ones. And some of the emotional arguments come with what we call factoids. All right? How are you able to, looking back, really present your argument in a way, because you're looking at hundreds of people in front of you, and I saw you just now on a clip where you were very emotional presenting. How do you balance the two between giving them the substance of what you want to deliver to them and keeping 15, 16-year-olds' attention for that period of time?
That's actually where we had to coach them a lot. So they had all the facts, they had all their arguments, and what we had to decide on was, how are you going to add flair?
Yeah.
So what we did, we brought in the teachers that we felt that could help them present with their arguments. And we also brought in individuals from the community that we thought that could help them with developing their flair and their technique.
Yeah. It's important. I mean, you can read an essay to anybody and they won't pay attention, but you got to convince them. And you all were very, very convincing. What was it like, though? I know that there had to be nerves, but when you get up there and you start, sometimes you get into your flow. But what was it like when you saw reactions?
As the first speaker, I wasn't expecting as much because I watched the clips over and I noticed I didn't seem nervous, but if you looked at my hands, they were like gone. So it was basically putting emphasis on things that would really catch them. So the very important facts, you put, you change your tone towards it, you put a little more emphasis on it, and that would have it remember it in their minds. And I think that was important, because if I just read it in a low monotone note, then no one would really, be paying attention. So if you have more feelings towards it, but at the same time delivering facts and very reliable information, it turned out very great.
So I'm going to ask the proposing side specifically, because we had a conversation with your research group on Friday, and they said that based on conversations they were having at school, there was a consensus for a no already. So you knew you had your work cut out for you. How did that impact how you prepared for the debate? Or did it impact?
Well, from my view, I think that in regards to, since we already had that consensus that it was going to be a no vote, we had to work 10 times harder, stay back. We spent like the whole day, then we had to stay back in the evenings, work. Sometimes we had to take out, because we had a lot of information, so we had to find out what we felt stuck with us the most, and then because of that, we would be able to present it in a manner that we'll be able to like reach out to them. Because once we can feel it and we go on stage and we speak about it with that emotion, then they're able to connect with that.
How much did you convince yourself of your argument?
Well, when I rewatched the clip, I think I convinced myself about 80%.
Okay.
But when I listened to other people and what they had to say, they were really convinced. So I was really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had the hardest job. I was the last speaker.
The rebuttal.
I had to contradict everything that the other side said and try not to sound unsure of myself. So it was really hard, but I'm really glad.
So sometimes in a debate, you have to represent a position that you don't necessarily agree with. Was anybody caught in that situation before you started?
Initially, when I first heard about this upcoming debate, I was no. And I had a humanitarian point of view on it, like because I wasn't very informed, I just listened to what others were saying around me, and after doing research and looking into it, I sided with the yes side. And so that was very, very different for me, because when we had the first meeting, I wrote my name down for no. So, and all of a sudden, I had a lot of family members give me like links to organizations and very reliable sites where I could read up on what's happening, and that's where I made my actual opinion on it.
When you informed yourself. Yeah. What about you ladies? You had no opinion, you had an opposite opinion?
Well, from the beginning I was like listening to conversations at home, and that's where I started to make my decision. So from the beginning I was a no, but what helped me before the debate even came up, I was always like reading about it, or like informing myself about it, or asking my grandparents and stuff. And so that's how I came more grounded with my decision of the no.
Did you confuse each other? Like you heard a point from this side where you said, man, that's pretty convincing, or the opposite way around?
It's actually I think it's on both sides, that you heard some points that are convincing.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Vivian started, I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go next. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go next, and I'm gonna have to convince them. No, I'm gonna have to take the crowd back from Vivian. And then it was so like back and forth, and I'm like, okay, we got this, come on.
So, tell me something. You only tell me, you don't have to tell the world. But how much do the results matter? You guys had a predisposition to know, okay, well, it's an uphill struggle. And can I also say this, that what you guys did in a small way is no different from the psychology of the bigger world, in attention span, things that make them take everything, even in terms of the struggle that they have. But my question was, did the results matter? And when the results came back, how did you feel about the results themselves?
Well, to me, the results didn't matter. It was a slim margin, and I was surprised about how close the results were. And when I watched the news Friday night, I was surprised to see that our argument, changed the viewpoints of some people. So the results didn't matter.
It really didn't matter to me as all of it, but the individuals that came to me that I had no idea knew me told me that, you changed my mind. Some adults that spoke to me, some teachers that said, you made very good points, I agree with you. The individuals that really took in what I said, really, really, that was important to me. The individuals that I had an impact on.
I want to hear this no.
The results for the no side?
Well, okay. So the results didn't really have a impact that much on us, but at the end of the day, we set out with one purpose, and it's to show our love for our country, and that we're not only kids, we also have an opinion, and we're happy that at the end of the day, we got to share information and open up like a new horizon to other students across Belize. Yeah. And it also showed that from what we proved, then, that it's the same way going to the ICJ. We could lose something simple as that. And so that was one of our main purposes, to show that we love and we cherish our country, and we want to do what is right for it, but we also want to keep it because it's ours.
Yeah. So I have a question for the no side, and I'll say, because SC is my alma mater, I know you girls can handle this if people think it's unfair. In the wider public, when people listen to, there's a yes campaign and there's a no campaign, officially on both sides, and then there's the referendum unit. When people attack the no campaign, they are often criticized as being purely emotional and that they have no facts. What did you find in your experience? Were you able to find facts that you could use as an argument And how difficult was that?
Well, in our experience, we actually started off with the facts, and then when we actually started to read up and research, we noticed that, you know, there some people say that we're based on emotions, but we're not based on emotions. It's mainly facts. And what we do with the facts is that we bring them across, and then we use the emotions to highlight that, you know, this is happening, and what, like, this would happen if we go to the ICJ or not.
So most people would say the north side is ignorant, but we had a lot of research done, lots of facts. But as Anya said, how to bring that out was you had to emphasize and put your passion into what you're saying in a way that people be like, yeah, I get her. That's true. But the way, you know. Yeah. Also, it was very hard to do that because like facts on a whole, we had this whole thing about documents, like actual documents, but we couldn't really put as much passion into that. It's documents, you can't really emphasize on that, but it blew our minds.
This reminds me of my first meeting with them. I said the very thing. The no side tends to bring a lot of emotions into it. I need facts.
Yeah.
And with them, I said, you guys tend to present a lot of facts. I need some emotion. So, you know, coaching both teams. It was very interesting. And I think one of the things that took the edge off the results was that we didn't want to declare a winner. And we told them that your purpose is mainly to inform and to inform youth about what is going on.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to follow up, to be fair, that the criticism on the yes side is that it's very highbrow, in-depth, and you know, some of the language that is used very often is inaccessible to people. So what I loved about the debate, and this is one of the things I think that we struggle with, is talk in language that people understand. And if you're talking to 16-year-olds, you're pretty much talking to our entire population, because it's not that we can't process anything else, it's just we like simplified language. So how did you take your very legal, factual, the information that you had that many people see as inaccessible, and make it into something that you knew your friends from first form up would be able to understand?
So I will agree that having to simplify things was really, really hard without losing its substance, its content. That was hard, I'll admit that. But it was successful in a way that we didn't want to put it in baby words so that everyone could feel as if we're trying to stoop down to their level or degrade them. We didn't want to degrade them, but we put it in a way that we understood it. Because sometimes the things that we read, we were like, what is that? Like, it was very hard to interpret. So the way we did it was we read it and we said, okay, would this reach out to you? And if we put it in a simpler term, but not too simple, have it in a standard way, and we read it to each other like, okay, do you get that? And they said, of course. So we added it, and after we revised everything, we said, okay, so I don't really understand this one, so take it out. But I understand this one, so put it in. So it was a pick, choose, and refuse situation.
And also your coaches, right? So at times I had to be like, okay, they can't see that. The 16-year-old. Tell them in a different way. Tell me in a different way. And then we started to ask a lot of questions, and then they were able to bring the information in a way which they could understand and their peers could understand.
So you had quite a bit of presentations before as well. You heard, let me see if I remember, you heard from the referendum unit. You heard from Giovanni Brackett, Rufus X, Will Mejia, former foreign ministers Lisa Showman and Assad Showman. Did I miss anybody?
Jordan Craig.
Jordan Craig, okay. Who's with the referendum unit? Okay. From what you were able to observe from the presentations, do you feel that their language is accessible to the wider public? In other words, did they deliver what you were able to deliver at the debate on Friday?
I'd say some.
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 Okay. Can you explain that further?
Well, at first the referendum unit, I'd be honest, it was a bit hard for me to understand, but after we asked a lot of questions, it was on point. Well, with Giovanni Brackett and Will Mejia, they were easily understood. They got their message across. No problem with that. With Assad Schumann, he was very relatable with the crowd. He came down, he was speaking in Creole, so we understood a lot.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Talking about the restrictions, because, like teacher was saying, you should come down and say, this is what I want, this is what I want. But I know each of you have your own style and, probably know, one of the things surely is time, because we don't talk like that. Nobody talks in these sentences that you write before and you cut it down to this. The way we relate to people is that we connect with them, or even in terms of the language you use. How did you manage to overcome the restrictions to still get across your points? Time, language, your position, your nerves. How did you get over the limitations that you had?
Honestly, when it came to limitations or restrictions, it's more like we had to become outside of our limitations, because some of us aren't really like public speakers. So what happened is that Mr. Broomfield...
I don't believe you. You are afraid. Go ahead.
What happened is that one of the teachers, Mr. Broomfield, who was the moderator for our debate, he actually came into both sides and he's like, okay, you need to relate to the crowd. He's like, bring yourself, relate your 16, you relate your age to their age because you're the same age. So break it down for them, and I'm like, okay. And so you had to like go outside your limits and actually like bring across and relate to the crowd.
In terms of, I want to broaden it a little. When I was going to SJC, we didn't have this. This was the 90s. You guys really had a civic process that you guys went through in terms of preparing, presenting, listening, campaigning, and then actually going through the actual process, dipping your fingers. I see the ink is still on some of you guys' finger. How do you think that, how do you think that this changes the way you will be in the future in terms of the way that you listen to issues that are national? And if I could go a bit further and say, what other issue do you think is out there that you think should have this level of conversation that we need as a country, where you think that young people like yourselves could contribute to that conversation? I can repeat the first question.
So the first question, yeah, we have time to speak them into the door. Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
I can. It's Monday morning and cool, so I have to break up my questions. The first question is, you went through this entire process. How does this change the way that you look at the process of voting, at the process of issues that we're having?
Okay, so for that first question, it really prepares me in the future to not be so ignorant on different opinions, and to do my own research, to read for myself, to make an opinion for myself. Try not to be influenced by others in the way that it would be negative for your own outcome. And I feel like in the future, when I have the opportunity to vote and do things like that, I would be able to make wise decisions, because I know how hard it is to present something the way other presenters have presented. I'm given the other point of view and to understand how they try to deliver their stuff. So yeah, I think it's that helpful.
And what else? The voting age is actually 18, And I sat here thinking, the vote that you guys put in on that day, and I'm not insulting anybody, but I'm saying the vote that you guys did is more informed than some of the adults will be in the real referendum, And
all these girls are agreeing.
Yeah. And it's no knock to anybody. It's just the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you feel like you should be involved in this vote?
Yes,
because
it has an impact more on us because we're the next generation, and so it should be only fair that we actually have a say in the actual thing.
And to add on to what Zariah is saying, like, we make up most of the population, so we should at least have a say that, you know, we're more, they said the electorate, so why shouldn't we be allowed since we make up more population than the whole electorate?
Very interesting perspective. So you all agreed on a point just now, and I was saving the question for the second part of the show. So I'll ask it now. We'll get some time to think and we'll come back, right? So now that you've informed yourself the way you have, I want to have a reflection on what you are hearing and seeing in the public. So the adults are carrying on in their own sphere and you're observers. But now you have gone through a process of educating yourself. And I want to hear what you think of what you see playing out in the public on this particular issue, all right? So that's what we'll discuss when we come back from our break. We're going to continue our conversation. We have the SCA debate teams with us, and we're going to continue talking about their preparation and perspectives on whether or not to go to the ICJ. So stay tuned.
What do you want from your bank?
I want to know that my bank will teach me how to save.
I want to know that my bank can help to make my dream of owning a home a reality.
I want to know that my bank will help me grow my business and build Belize.
I want to know that my bank will keep my investment safe.
Whether you want to start a savings plan, build your own home, invest in your business, or plan for retirement, the Belize Bank is here for you. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
And we're back with more Open Your Eyes. We are continuing into our second part of the show. We still have on set with us the representatives that you saw on Channel 5 on Friday, the speakers for the SCA debate on whether or not to take the Guatemalan claim to the ICJ. And one of the question I asked before the break, I'll give you guys the opportunity to respond now. Since you've had this very in-depth process of looking at the information, pros and cons, preparing for rebuttals and preparing for presentations, you understand this issue a lot more than most people. We can say that. So now when you take a look back at how the adults are conversing about this, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Well, I think that some of them just need to be more informed. Some of them, you know, there were the forums that went around and very low attendance. I think some of them just don't want to know. And from conversations I've had with my parents, they know, but they just aren't confident. So they would tend to swing the other way.
I think that because of low attendance, people tend to say that what I've been hearing is that the very quote is that, oh, it doesn't affect me, I don't have to listen. And that's something that I really don't like hearing, but I hear it very often. And other times people are saying it's overwhelming. Why do I have to make this decision? Why is it up to me? People feel very overwhelmed with all of the opinions mixed with facts. It's very hard to decipher which is which most of the time. And so I think that's one of the reasons that attendance could be low. People are uninterested. One, it's just too much stress for them to handle. They feel like it's not important to them, and I think that's why.
So you see and hear more people who just don't want to do the work or put in the extra effort to look up their information. What about you guys?
Well, with like something similar to what Vivian said, we noticed that some of the adults, they don't really pay attention, or some of them, they do go to the forums, but because they have different opinions and view of the both sides of yes or no, it's confusing and they don't know what to say or how to go across with voting and thinking about what they're gonna vote in a referendum.
Yeah. Do you think they're going about it in a very mature way? They're always very critical of young people. I'd love to hear the opposite.
Honestly, I don't think that they're doing it in a mature way, because as an adult, as a person who is registered and voting, it's your responsibility to read the information, to decipher, and to know how you're going to vote. It's your responsibility. That's what I believe.
You know, let me just put a little bit of reality into our conversation a little. Or context, to put it in a very nice PC way. There are certain things that were absent from your debate. In the real world, and we heard the Prime Minister speak about it, and in regular campaigns, when somebody's on the rostrum, which is where you guys were, there are people in the crowd heckling, saying, you know, you the traitor, you dumb, and you actually hear it when you're speaking. There was none of that during your debate. Do you think that if that had happened, that would have changed the way that you presented, and how would it have changed the way you presented?
Well, I think, thank God that wasn't the situation. I'm very grateful that it was censored in a bit. But I think I wouldn't really change my approach, because there was some heart-wrenching things that I personally took out. I think it would have to be my responsibility to remain in a very mature state. I can't be calling someone a name because they're calling me something. I have to remain in a diplomatic state. I can't be telling anyone something mean because of their opinion. And I'd want to, if that was the case, I'd want to mention to them, just give me a minute. Have me express what I feel is important to me. And then you give your views. That's the only way we could come across. It's the only way you could get one-on-one. So that's what I think.
Let me hear from Zariah.
Well, the same as Vivian, I'm glad that wasn't a part of it.
Yeah.
But if it did happen, we were prepared in a way, because our coaches, Mrs. Wade in particular, she told us, look, not everyone agrees on everything. So there might be outbursts or people like giving you weird facial expressions, but stick with your purpose and be confident in yourself. So even after the end of the debate, I went home and I was watching it on the internet, and during the live stream you could see people commenting, and some older people, well, adults, they were, oh, young lady, you are misinformed and stuff. And I just laughed because, well, that's just the way it is. Not everyone sees everything the same way, but it's just how you choose to take it and process it. You could be mature, or you could be the one that's running behind them and feeling bad, or you could just rise above that.
How much did the competition or the difference in opinion affect you both as the groups?
Well, we felt that we had a lot of pressure. because of the same consensus that everyone was pushing towards the no side, we felt that pressure. So we had to work really hard.
Yeah. But did we have like Vivian calling out Anya in the hallway and just
Actually, that's what people expected us to do. My classmates, they were like, "Oh, so you guys are gonna stop being friends?" Because I actually have very good friends on the other side, so it was hard. It was very hard but that we didn't let that get into our friendship, because this matter is a broad matter. It shouldn't affect me and that other person individually, and other people were looking at us and they're like, "Oh, aren't you guys supposed to be enemies?" And I said, "No, this isn't a fight. It's just a different opinion, and we shouldn't let that affect us as friends or as classmates or anything."
Well, just to add to what Vivian said, Anya and we are best friends. So we didn't let that get in the way of our friendship.
So there was a pact. You couldn't let out the secrets, right?
We're just going to be like, okay, this week we're going to be separate. We're not going to argue anything. You have this opinion, I have this opinion, we're done.
No, in terms of, it's a very funny situation because, you know, in the real world you have leaks. So, you know, you send out your little spies and you hear, okay, one of the things they will come and present is that they are come and say that the ICJ have a lot of smart man. How we deal with that? Did you guys ever think about or ever engage in, you know, looking at, let's try to hear what they're saying to try to come and prepare so we have, you know, we have an answer for that. I was fearing love and war.
Well, to be fair, there was a lot of suspicion that was happening because we were working in separate rooms, but there was like, hey, you know, I think she's listening. But we tried
here to the chalkboard kind of scenario.
We tried very hard to just not let that happen, to be fair.
Yeah.
To have it, not for it to be one-sided or have it seem as if we're cheating and finding out their sources and things like that. But there was a lot of suspicion that it was happening. It was a lot.
I remember this day, the last day, I wanted them to practice with the mic. I could not get them on stage. My principal could not get them on stage. They were like, "No, we're not going to do it over the mic. Somebody will hear us." And so we had to say, "Okay, we'll let it go. Go with God."
We actually had this time where we had to switch rooms, right? So someone said on our team that what if they left a wire recorder in here?
Yeah, because they left a bag in there. And we were like.
But I think that's really interesting. You know, one of the things when I looked at your presentations, I have to be honest, I was kind of expecting to hear some of the same things that I'd heard from the people who'd presented to you. But you really veered away from them. And I'll go with the no for that. We didn't hear about the United Nations recognizing us. It wasn't like one of your main points. It was mentioned, I think, in one of the presentations. And some of the points that we've been hearing repeatedly from the No campaign weren't necessarily the basis for your presentation. Was that deliberate in how you wanted to present your position?
Well, we actually had some stuff at the United Nations, but we mostly based our presentation upon the question and why we shouldn't trust Guatemala, because we already have bent our back and broken some laws and changed some laws for their country when they haven't accommodated us. So that's the main point of our campaign, and then our debate, our side of the debate. And another main thing that we focused on was United Nations said that they broke a contract with them. So why we as a country, and they said it themselves, why other countries should trust Guatemala when they disrespected the UN themselves.
Yeah, you spoke of CICIG. Did you find in putting together, on either side, in putting together your presentation, facts that went against what was presented to you? You shake your head.
I think I came across, I guess, the question, the referendum question, which I'll admit, did have some technicality to it. And it gave us a weak spot because of how detailed that question is. And so it was very, very hard to try to avoid that, to back that up. And it was that was one of the main things that had us questioning, like, oh my gosh, okay, so there's this problem with this question that we're going for. How are we gonna correct it? And at the same time, backing it up as to why that question is formed like that.
So what I didn't hear from you guys in keeping it balanced was I didn't hear what we've been hearing a lot as the wider public. We have an ironclad case. We're not going to lose. Why'd you choose not to go that route?
Well, I actually brought it up once, but they said it themselves in their presentation. Other countries with ironclad cases went and they lost. So we don't want to use that same thing because we knew that they can use it against us. And we don't want to say ironclad, ironclad, ironclad because, you know, people will be like, what makes you so sure? That was one of the main questions in almost all the forums. What makes you so sure?
You know, it's a very funny thing. Because what we're going to face in the next few weeks as a country is not how strong our case is. Our question is, should we give a court the power to make a decision for us? And then after that, you answer these questions. In your preparation for debate, were you able to separate those? Because it's two separate questions. The strength of your case is one thing. The question is whether or not you want to resolve it by going this route as opposed to other things. Are you able to separate? Most adults can't. Were you able to separate it in your preparations?
Well, for me, I believe that in regards to in addition to what she said, how we were able to separate it, it was more reading into like the facts, knowing, because there was misinformation from media sources as well. So that was a factor. Then we had to, okay, so we can't check there. So we have to go to and relate and look at other countries that took their matter to the ICJ and realize that the International Court of Justice is an unbiased third party that we should probably look into.
No perspective here? Krishna, you've been so quiet. And you were so passionate on that stage. I'm having a hard time separating those two people.
Is it that thing where it's done for you guys? It's like, you know,
I'm over it.
It's a presentation. It's like when I crammed for exams when I was in law school. You cram for it and you're not following the asking questions about anything and you're like, is that the sentiment, or are you guys excited to now see like passing a baton? I did it and I'm not watching now to see what these deadbeat adults are going to do. Is it like that? What is the sentiment now?
Yeah, you can tell us.
Actually, we were having a conversation earlier and we asked each other, do you remember what you spoke about? We were blank. I think we were so filled with adrenaline and emotions that we could barely remember what actually happened. And I think that's why we're having problems to recall what we actually spoke about.
I actually went to look back on my video and I'm like, no, I can't do this.
You couldn't watch it.
I couldn't watch it. I'm like, I really sung like that. I was like, wow, I spoke in front of 1,000 people. I was like, oh my God.
When the high pitches come, like,
No, it's never comfortable watching or hearing yourself. I can attest to that. But Kevin asked, I think, a really important question that I don't want you all to get away from. Are you done with this? Are you over it and it doesn't matter anymore? Or are you now even more in tune to what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks?
Actually, I think all of us are gonna, like, I know maybe all of us are gonna tune in more to the news and like actually pay attention to what's gonna happen in the next few weeks, because whatever happens on April 10th this year would affect mainly us, not the adults, because we're generation next. As you know, our debate, that's the purpose of the debate, to inform everyone, and so that the adults could know, like, decide one decision that will benefit to us and to them and to the whole of Belize.
Yes. And I think the same excitement we started with is the same way we ended it with, and we'll continue it, because it goes a long way for us. And the experience that we got, we could make from it, continue to learn more. I don't think there's ever a time where we would stop learning and being more informed about it. So I think, yeah, it stays the same, except that there's no more nervousness for any presentation.
You're not nervous about how the adults will decide?
I am. That really, I'll admit, it does worry me.
Let's do a hand raising. How many of you trust that the voting population in this country will make the right decision for you? Raise your hand if you feel they will. Anybody wants to say why?
That's a rough percentage. 0.
Does anybody want to say why? Anybody comfortable saying why?
Well, I don't trust because, like we said before, some people just don't care. Others are making their decision based on opinions and emotions. Others are just not confident, so they would choose the no side. And I think I just don't trust them. They're not acting like they are informed. Some adults are really, what I saw in the comments, what some of them said about us, are like, wow, we are more mature than you are.
I agree. I saw some of the comments myself.
Yeah,
and I think they didn't understand what a debate is, but that was a different story. Go ahead.
I think they do it. I'm really hoping that they don't choose for just themselves. I hope they have a little bit of mercy on the future, because I was reading in the comments too, and they were very vulgar in a sense. They weren't very understanding, and I think that's because a lot of adults have the mentality that, oh, they're just children, they don't know what they're saying. I will admit that they downgrade children at the time, and that would make them not really care about our future, about our well-being, based on their decision. And so that's why I said no trust.
I'm actually really worried about the referendum, because the decision they make is based, it's gonna impact us mostly, and we will be the future developers of our country, and whatever they decide is mainly what they decide what would happen to the country in the future. And we have to be the generation to take care of when we get older and take care of this country. And when we get older, we have to bring up our children and teach them that, this is Belize. Take care of the country, because you're going to be the next generation after us.
And you're all 16, 15, basically, yeah. So, you're either going to be carrying on the mantle of an ICJ case or whatever alternative negotiations, whatever alternatives arise.
And that brings me to my final question. Can I say this too? Don't worry about the comments. It's a culture where we live. And it even happened to Jesus, Jesus said, forgive them, Father, because they don't know what they do, So, and leaders, that's what leaders do. A leader has to have a thick skin, and I'm proud of you guys, absolutely. Okay? But my final question is in terms of the biggest issue, even for the yes and for the no, is the issue of consequence. Because we just don't know. And fear of the unknown is the worst fear you can have. For the yes side, the consequence of a yes vote and we go to the ICJ and we lose, what is the consequence there? For the no side, if we vote no, then what is the consequence of what Guatemala will do? Have you guys considered you guys are really on the same side of the same issue? And how do we get Belizeans to realize that we all have the same issue? Our issue is the consequence. How do we get Belizeans to realize that it's the consequence that's our issue, not the yes or the no?
I think in relation to what you said, the consequence, that brings about the fear, and fear of the unknown. That's a big problem. So because there's a fear of the unknown, people are going to say we're not ready. And there's also been talk about the fact that we've had a low amount of people coming out to register, so that was an issue, and then we had to extend that time and have that open. And so in relation to fear of the unknown, we kind of had to, well, I think that the referendum unit and the Ministry of Education has to reach out more in regards to the areas that aren't as educated, or the people, so that everyone can have a fair understanding of what the reality is for both sides.
Well, I hope you guys have already been recruited as a part of the education campaign, right? Mrs. Hibberd, I got to bring it back to you as a representative of the school. There had to be moments where you just wanted to cry out of pride of these girls. It's amazing to hear the depth of their knowledge of the issue and their analysis of the circumstances around it.
I was very happy that at no point nobody looked at me during the debate. I mean, the camera didn't shine. I remember with Vivian when she spoke, because at first her speech was the one that we ripped apart the most. When she finally got it together and she said it with confidence, like I could feel the tears coming. And then when Anya spoke, I'm like, okay, dear Lord, let them applaud. And the whole time I was like this, you know, by the time at the end I was just like, it's over. But, you know, I'm very grateful that they're modeling what things should be like, making an informed decision. And I hope that the wider public does the same. Educate yourself, whether you vote yes or no. But just you owe it to them to be informed and make an informed decision, and not one based on emotions. And at the end of the day, for me, they're all winners. I'm grateful that the Belize Tourism Board has given them a trip to the Turnesh Islands. Yes, I don't think they all knew that. So I am very grateful, and the school is taking them out to dinner at Radisson, I believe. So they're all winners, not just them, but the research team as well. So everybody.
And that's what I wanted to say. You guys have a larger group that supports you. You have your researchers, your writers, and then it's you guys as the speakers. Well, I have to say congratulations.
Couldn't do it without them.
The team, like they're both. I know on both sides, the team really pushed you to your limits, and you have to. They have to be like, no, you're not doing it right. Let's go. I want to feel the passion. Bring it on.
Yeah, you make the writers mad when you're not delivering, right?
The team were really our emotional support as well. They really, you know, backed us up. They encouraged us. They corrected us. They said, no, that's not the way you do it. This is the way. And they said, no, this isn't the way you pronounce it. This is the way. They were helping us. They were the main reasons why we had that much confidence on the stage.
And Davren, I saw when they all, and both sides, they rushed up to get ready for that rebuttal. That's when that had to be such a critical moment. I can't imagine.
Oh, that was. Words cannot describe how I felt that moment. It was like, okay, break time. I was like, okay, I need to get these notes together. And then I saw everyone running up on stage like, hey, they said this, hey, they said that. I'm like, okay, I can't listen to everybody at the same time. But
and really, that was unplanned. There, I remember them looking like, Miss, they're shaking, they're looking at me, what to do. And my principal is like, support them. And so, you know, I'm glad that they were confident, Zariah and Camryn in the end.
I'm really grateful for the team. Also, the many hours we spent together, they were not only there for emotional support, but I could recall at times that we all got frustrated, like, you know what, we'll take a break, and we're going to, you know, tell some funny stories. And we formed a lot of new friendships.
Nice. That's what happens when a team works very hard together. So this is the original, this is the beginning of an SCA debate team club. What are we going to see as a result? I think you guys should be debating every national issue from this point forward. That's my vote.
That would be
next up, what will we talk about? What would you debate next, a national issue, if you could?
Well, I'm a big fan of the ocean here in Belize. I'd say our next step should be about the offshore drilling and the ban of nets, the nets, gill nets.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I agree with her because those nets,
I have one for you guys.
Wait, I want to hear what her answer is. What would you debate next?
There's also been the topic of the legalization of marijuana.
I thought that would be one. I would love to see SCA girls debate that one. The legalization or whatever decision on marijuana. What about the diasporan vote? Does that matter to you? Whether people who live outside of Belize can vote?
That was actually one point we had, that was a topic of discussion because some of the people from our team, they were like, we think that we should allow people that live abroad but are Belizeans to come and vote, but then our point was, would it actually be necessary because they don't live here, it doesn't affect them. Because they'll just come, cast their vote, and then they leave. So
it sounds like the beginning of a debate right there.
I have one I'd like to hear you guys talk about, which is how we vote. Who qualifies to vote has been something that's changed over years. At one point in time, slaves couldn't vote. At one point in time, it was a certain age, women couldn't vote. Maybe it's time we revisit that. Look at in terms of where you guys see in terms of you guys contributing to the current vote. So that's where I'd like to see you guys go next. But that's just me.
I was just going to say that you know, we should probably change the voting age to 16.
And that too was a question that one of our students brought up after one of the forums. She was asking of why is it that the voting age is 18 when we as 16-year-olds, we are more mature and able to think analytically than most adults.
They put it in a hat, they put numbers in a hat and then they went 18, yes, that's the new number.
Well, maybe they should try and pick again.
Yeah. They should pick again. All right. Well, we hope to see more. I think you've really impressed us. We had high expectations and you exceeded them. Just in what you were able to deliver on Friday. And I want to thank you for the hard work that you put in, as well as the school itself. And I want to thank you from the public as well, because I think you guys really clarified some issues that hadn't been clarified as yet for both perspectives. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead now and take our break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the recent case of Facebook defamation. That's coming up after the break.